Hey there, my name is Cicero Moraes and I will try to show you how to use OrtogOnBlender to do a surgical planning. I don't speak English very well, but like it video tutorial, you can see the buttons and the mouse and understand how it works, how you can do a planning using this add-on. The first thing, we have to erase all objects in scene. I will select all with A. Pressing A 2 times, you can see in this part of the screen all keys I press will appear here. Okay, so all selected, I will click X to delete all. I can to change the from perspective to ortho with non-lock number 5, or pressing this button first art here. Okay, now I will open the directory where I exported the tomography. Important thing, you have to open this until appear the DCM slices. Okay, and Blender only works with slices, not only one DCM file. If you could, please uncheck this relative path and accept to start to import. But in this case, I receive a tomography from tomograph of other country and have some numbers different of the original default buttons. For example, if you will work with CT scan, is this button with these values, and if you work with CBCT, Conbin, you have to click here to change the values. But in this case, we will change the 3. This will be the 443, this less 475, and this fifth 655. Okay, this number is because we will import the mandible to be separated, and you will understand better in the future when I import and start to segmentate the objects. Now we click and convert to the icon, and we can see the important process here until all objects is reduced and imported. I will stop a little and I will come back when all this was finished. Okay, the CT scan was imported, and in the right upper part we can see the hierarchy, and the bones is the main object. If we press Z, we can see the bone inside, and if you move the object with G, you will see that the other objects will move together. Right, now you can hide the soft tissue, and if you need, you can start to align this object with the scene. I'm seeing in front, okay, and I put the vertical center line, and I can select the bones here. You have to work with the bones, and you can move it and rotate it if needed until the middle line be okay. You can put the horizontal line like here to see if all okay with the, for example, the eyes. Okay, we can see that this eye is a little down, using like a reference the other, so you can rotate if you want a little to put it aligned, but have to be careful about the middle line. Okay, and if you want, you can see in right and put the horizontal side line Some people like to use the Frankfurt plane. I will select the bone. I will click here to rotate using like reference the cursor, but when I tried to rotate it, Blender use the origin of object like reference, so I have to go down and change here to 3D cursor, so I can rotate and put it in Frankfurt plane, right? If you want, you can select these lines after you align it. You can select these lines, and you can put it in other layer. I will press M and put in this layer. If I click Shift and click here, you can see the two layers in the same time. I'll click again, and now we have to start to segmentate this object. Only I have to show you that the soft tissue was rotated together the bone, because you was with the bone selected. So when you rotate the bone, for example here, the soft tissue will be rotated together. This CT scan have a problem with this part of the nose, and this part, because it's a cone beam tomography, but you can fix this using photogrammetry, taking photos of the face, importing these photos in OrtogOnBlender, and create scanning using the photos like reference. But in this case, I will only show you how to work with OrtogOnBlender, the tools and the buttons, and I'm not an expert in planning surgical plane. The goal of this video tutorial is show you how use OrtogOnBlender. Okay, so let's come back here and hide the soft tissue, and now we will start to segmentate the objects. I like to put the objects, each object in one layer. For example, this I like to let in this layer, but I will do something different. I will put in the second layer, and this object, that is the teeth is this factor 655. This allows us to segmentate the mandible easier, because the condyle was separated automatically with this factor. Okay, the only thing we have to do is separate this part of teeth, the upper teeth, to keep the mandible alone. I will put this object in this layer. Okay, so we have two layers, the upper layer with the bones, look, bones here, and the down layer with the teeth. So I select the object, and we have to go to segmentation, and I will see in this viewpoint, and I will draw the part will be deleted. So I will click in draw line and start to draw a line that will keep the down teeth and separate the mandible. So I draw here, look, I have to do this type of draw, enter, and cut draw. You have to wait a little because it's a complex model, and it can take some seconds, or depends on the computer, it can take some minutes to finish the projections. Look, it's finished. So to show you, I will select it and I will move it. Oops, this. I move it. Look, that is the draw is through, the selection is through, and all this draw was selected until this part. I will put it in other layer, this layer down to show you what was separated. And we have this part. I can select the mandible. I avoid to rotate a lot to draw here and cut the mandible. I have to put more or less in this viewpoint. Okay. Now I end with this teeth selected, this object selected, and now I will click in draw line and start to draw here. Okay, and finish with the same place I started. Okay, with this cross. Enter and cut draw to cut this part. We have to wait a little until finish the projection, and now we already have this part separated. I will put it in another layer. Okay, and you can select if you want the draw, the reference draw, and delete it. These two I will delete. And now we can separate the mandible. How we do it? Simple. First, select the object. Okay. Second, click over the surface, the object you want to separate, like it is. You can only click in the part you want to separate. So I click here, and I will click in separate linked. When I click here, the only object will rest is this. Okay. Now we have in this layer this object, and the up layer that other object. Okay. So I come back here in the down layer. I already have the mandible selected, but if we press Z, we can see inside that have a lot of objects inside, structures inside. We have to delete these inside objects because the next part needs to have only the external object. Look that we have internal objects. A to B. To select only the external part, have a tip interesting. Once you have selected the mandible, you can go in weight paint 1, click. You can increase the size of the paint circle, click in F, and start to paint easily this. Okay, almost done. You don't need to paint perfectly. Okay, this is good. Now you can go to look at the internal part. I will press 8B. Look that the internal part was not painted. It kept it blue. Alt B and Z. Oops, Z will not appear anymore. So I will click in delete blue, that I want to delete the blue part. I will show you what will happen. I will 8B here to show you interactively. I will click in delete blue. Okay, and the blue part was deleted. When I press Z, you can see that don't have any more internal parts. Now we have this mandible with only external part in this layer, and we have the skull, the bones in other layer entirely. You have to keep in this layer only, and the OrtogOnBlender will use this separated mandible to separate the mandible of other layer, because that skull is only one object, and you can see that this part is glued. Okay, it's only one object. So I will select this mandible, and I will separate only clicking in Separate Skull Mandible. Once you click here, you automatically order OrtogOnBlender to separate the mandible using this reference to separate that mandible on this layer. Okay, it can late some seconds or some minutes. It depends on the computer. Okay, here is finished. This computer is relatively good. And when finished, you have the mandible of the bone. This is the bone. Is not the same bone of this layer because this was copied, okay, and here was created other bones. So this bone is created already with the mandible separated, and when we move the mandible, look, when we move the mandible, the bone keep entire. Okay, but we have a little problem because when I move it, you can see that some objects keep in the space, and we can, to avoid the problem in the future when we will go the cut, only clicking over the skull. Look, I will click over the skull, and I will use the same objects, the same command I used before. Separate linked. I will click here, and all is not in the same object will be deleted. Look that we don't have anymore the object we don't want to use. Now we have a skull cleaned and a mandible cleaned and separated. Right? The next part we will start to cut the object, but I will create another video to avoid a great video with a lot of minutes. Thank you very much for your attention, and we will see in the next video to work together. Bye bye.